Hello, everybody. It is your host, KG82 Live, a.k.a. the Bald Brawlers, a.k.a. the man that murdered my old co-host. I'm now joined by my new co-host, the ghost of Zachariah Earlbeck. Zach, how we doing after King Henry just snatched your dreams right in front of you?
Not doing good. I'll be honest. I'm glad that you had the scheduling conflict that pushed us to Thursday, because there was some motherfuckers flying on Monday night, and I needed every second until now to cool off, because boy was I fucking mad. So and the other thing is, I suppose we got to address is I'm getting roasted in the chat because people think I'm skipping like Built, that cocksucker. Kirby had a scheduling event. I texted him. I said, you know what, we can lean into this. You text the group and tell them like, yeah, like it's Zach's fault. Well, I thought you were going to be subtle about it. No, you went fucking straight for the jugular. You're like, yeah, Zach's an asshole. He isn't doing it. It's like, okay, that seemed a little aggressive, but I suppose that's kind of what we talked about. So
I was about to say, you're the main guy that just go ahead.
Poured the biggest drink I've ever made in my entire YarskCap life, and I suppose we just flush down the toilet and move on to next week. So
I was about to say, you're always just like, hey, I'm all for the content. I'm all for the content. So I was like, I could just say something small, or I could just go straight for the jugular. And one of the most annoying things, because obviously our matchup came down to Monday night between our king, Derrick Henry, and Stephon Diggs, and your kicker. And your guys went the frick off. I mean, you say beforehand that your guys get 31 points. I mean, that means Derrick Henry needs like a 24 or 25 point game to win. And
yeah. Fucking 3 touchdowns and 130 yards. It's like, what? Fuck off.
I know, it was a hell of a matchup. And one of the things that's annoying to me when we restart those Monday nights is the early, oh wow, no targets for Diggs, I'm just gonna concede defeat, nice win. I'm like, that is so annoying when everyone does that. So I decided to play the exact opposite, the overconfident, selfish, I'm burying you the whole entire time. So that's why I was such a huge dick Monday and Tuesday. And it's more fun when people are excited as opposed to conceding defeat. So that was my rationale, being a huge dick over those few days.
No, what's it called? It's like there's a word for it where you basically just like you get into like hey, good game off. You know what I mean? Like good game. No, you good game. No, fuck you, good game. Good luck. No, fuck you, good luck. So I was hoping to start one of those, but you took it the total opposite way. So
no, it's more fun when you talk shit and actually believe in your guys. And hell, when King Henry scored his first 75-yard touchdown, like, oh hell yes, I got this. Then the very next drive, Diggs gets a touchdown, and we had a back and forth battle until Henry got his second touchdown, and then the third put the nail in the coffin.
Diggs had, I'm pretty sure there were 4 targets in the end zone, and he caught one of them. He hit his hands. That ended up being a pass interference. There was one that was thrown like down low and outside, and there was one in like the first quarter too. So I mean, he had 4 targets in the end zone, which would have made it real spicy. But fuck do you do? So
I know. Hey, you know what? We'll take the win however we can get them. I'm excited to move to 5-1 and finally take the lead over Sap. And we got a freaking log jam at the 3-3 house.
You're right, but before we leave this whole people being cocksuckers, you got to post it tonight so I don't have to hear about it all night. You got to get it up tonight. So otherwise I'm going to fucking hear about it.
I thought about it, and what I'm going to do, we're going to post it tonight, and then we're not going to message anybody until in the morning. So if people actually have the notifications on, like we said earlier, they'll be pinged like, hey, Kirby's uploaded it. But if people don't know that, then we'll just wait till the morning and shoot the group text. But the people that hopefully someone will randomly see it get posted tonight, and then we'll know they're the true YarskCap followers. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
We'll give them a little butt tap on the old rankings. If they got the noties turned on for the pod, give them a little butt tap.
We got to hold them accountable. I mean, we're sitting here, we're putting in the time every single week. We want to make sure they at least subscribe. It's like pressing a fucking button on YouTube, guys. Come on, guys.
Yeah, supposedly what all the YouTube guys say is it helps the algorithm. So we got to have subscribers. We got to have the likes. You know, we need that shit. Turn that little bell. Tap that bell, baby.
I know we had a good matchup. I mean, your running backs came to play with Aaron Jones and Mixon, and which is what you need to turn around. Your receivers just didn't happen to get it done for you between Allen and McLaurin. So go ahead. Is there any other go big?
Two start sit decisions that I messed up on. Obviously the Broncos defense. I was back and forth between them and the Bengals. I picked wrong there. And then the other one was McLaurin came up late in the week with a hamstring injury. So I was back and forth. I mean, everybody was saying against the Chiefs, it was supposed to be a great matchup. And, you know, everybody's like, well, if you got him, you got to play him. But I was back and forth. I didn't know if I wanted to go Chuba. So those were the two start sit decisions that I eventually cost me, I guess. So, I mean, hindsight's 2020, what the fuck do you do? But yeah, those probably cost me, I would say.
Yeah, through the early news slate, you were looking very good because inexplicably, Jonathan Taylor had like 2 carries the whole first half against the Texans. I don't know what the hell happened. And then he decided to go the fuck off. So he's been really my champion ever since I've been able to snag him from Ross. And he's been a solid RB2 for me. And we'll just keep riding him and Henry, hopefully, to the ground. And we'll see how far it can take us, baby. But outside of that, we had a good matchup. You know, it's better luck next year unless you can meet me in the playoffs. So we'll see what the hell happens comes down the road if you got one more shot at it. But with that in mind, I guess we also got to touch base on the big news. Jared freaking got a win. He beat Ross. I mean, we got to give the guy his flowers. I mean, Darrell Williams was the pickup that he chose last week over the backup running back for the Giants. He came off huge for 20 points. And Jared didn't have the craziest scoring game, but Ross really just laid an egg. I mean, Debo was on a bye, but his team just didn't get any touchdowns, which can happen some week. But Jared will take the one win whenever he can get it. I mean, what are your thoughts with that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, obviously good for me because Ross is a division mate. Love to see him lay an egg. It's 2 weeks in a row with Ross in the 90s. So I don't know if that's a trend or what's going on. Obviously takes a lot of pressure off the other Yarsky members because we were starting to flirt with that, like Jared's defeated and nobody wants to be the team that gives them the first dub. So Ross kind of fell on that sword for the rest of us. So that was nice. Plus, like I said, Ross is a division mate. He's got the head-to-head tiebreaker on me right now. So that was big for the boys. So I loved it. Fuck, good for Jared. Good for the squad. I was all in.
Yep, I was 100%. And like you said, those division matchups, like I think when we were going to Sunday night, it actually looked like your division would win every matchup but Jared's matchup. And then all of a sudden there was a swing between my matchup and Bilt's, which kind of switched it. So 3-2 advantage Natty so far. But go ahead. Any last words that you had on it?
Fuck Monday night games. I like first week Waller goes banana lands on me. This week, Derrick Henry goes banana lands on me. No more fucking Monday night games. I've had enough of them. It's too stressful. I want it all to be over by like the noon slate on Sunday so I can just enjoy the rest of the football weekend.
I know it is freaking nuts, but that's what always makes it great. But what's also funny is Waller, ever since that first game, I think he hasn't eclipsed like 12 points in a week. So
yeah,
he decides to go bananas against you.
Yeah, that's fucking. I mean, that game they threw him the ball every single time. Not to like complain, but fucking he's sucked ever since then.
But hey, with that in mind, the last game we kind of wanted to touch base on last week was Axe getting himself a big upset win over Schultes. And one of the best picks to go along with Cooper Kupp that Pooty took would be Josh getting Darrell Henderson. He has been an absolute workhorse ever since he's been healthy. 23 points, and now his next 3 weeks he's got really good matchups. So Josh found himself an absolute stud there at running back, and he still got Saquon and Chubb injured, so he potentially could have a stable of running backs that makes him a little bit of a dark horse. And finally, the thing that got him the most points last week in the $10 payout was the Dak and CeeDee Lamb connection. So that was a nice little stack that he got there.
That's what I was going to say. He had the stack, which obviously took him to the moon, but he's going to need Darrell Henderson to hold down the boys because who else did he stick? I forgot who his other running back he played this week, but I mean, I don't know how long those guys are going to be out, but without him, Darrell Henderson's going to have to hold the fort down because he's pretty thin in that department otherwise, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Giants have a bye this week. So he does have Saquon insurance, assuming, but I'm not sure if the Giants have their bye this week, which could make it a little interesting. I think
No,
the
I think they're
Giants
playing.
Giants playing. So yeah, he's rocking Booker and Henderson. So he's got the two running
Yeah.
backs that he's going with. But that was a huge shout out for
Yep.
him. And Axe got himself a hell of a wing. And Schultes, despite like he had himself a good game too. I mean, Leonard Fournette looks like the real freaking deal when he played on Thursday night. And the one thing that kind of hurt Schultes' team is Mike Williams and Mike Evans. So they both can have huge games, but if they don't have huge games, they kind of disappear. So those two guys happen to disappear, but he still had a great week overall if you look at his total team points.
And Schultes is going to be a guy where I mean, last week, if I remember right, he did not have Kamara, right?
That's correct. He got Khalil Herbert. So his two running backs he started still scored 45 points.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with Schultes' team. He blows up here, has a good week, and then he still loses. It's like, I just feel like he's been very consistent. So I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like I've said from the beginning, I don't know what to do with Schultes' team. And that stayed the same again this week because it's like he got another 120, but it turned into a loss. So it's like, I don't know. It's like good team, but not turn into, I don't know. I don't know what to do with Schultes' team. I don't know what to make of it.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the power rankings because aren't going to touch base on the matchup. But Sap's team, despite only having one loss and the highest climb he had in the power rankings, dropped to 72 turd and pulled an axe with starting somebody that didn't want to play. And what was funny is I looked back at the Yarsky tape. He was talking up Devontae Parker's like, oh, he's going to get all these targets. He's healthy. And so he's really going to do it. And then the guy doesn't even play. I don't want to hear any excuses of the London game. It was announced the day before he wasn't going to play. So Sap, watching all of these games, he really is not doing too good at all that with his little rant he had earlier this year.
Wasn't Sap the one who was roasting Axe the most about not playing players? Wasn't that Sap's pod? Okay, that's what I thought. So boy, that's called like karma or chef's kiss. You know that you can't make that stuff up right there.
Salt Bay, baby. Salt Bay. But yeah, we'll see what all summarizes with that once we get to the power rankings. But before we get into that, we got to at least touch base on two trades that happened this week. The first one was between actually Sap and Roscoe. And so Ross, he got Cordero Patterson from Sap squad, and Sap, he got himself an upgrade at tight end with Dalton Schultz and Devontae Smith. So we didn't even talk about the trades because we just want to get our reactions here from the pod. So what was your initial thoughts on that deal?
I mean, Ross wanted a running back. That's what he was looking for. Somebody that was, I mean, the question for me comes down to, what do you think Cordero Patterson will be the rest of the year? Do you think he's going to continue to do the exact same things he's going to do? Or do you think he's going to like fade into I don't necessarily think he's going anywhere. So I was kind of surprised to see Sap move on from him. I mean, yeah, it helps to get, I think Devontae Smith is fine and Dalton Schultz will be an upgrade, but I was surprised to see him let go of Cordero personally. That's my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I think Cordero. So there was, I thought Ross was easily the big winner of the trade because Sap obviously has the number one running back in Zeke, and he has his number two running back now being Mike Davis, and really nobody else. And that's a position where he seems to be weak. I know Jeff Wilson's on his bench, but they're talking he might not come back till late November. And I think we can all agree that what's the fuck's his name? I'm already forgetting who we were talking about. Oh, Cordero. He won't keep it up the rest of the year. He won't keep this pace the rest of the year. But so long as he's like right now, I think he was the RB3 going into his bye week. If he's a top 20 running back, top 25, that's valuable and what Ross needs for his team. Whereas Devontae Smith, he's in a passing offense that can't throw the ball. I know you have Jalen Hurts, but the only reason he's been good is because he runs the touchdowns, which that works for fantasy, but he can't run.
Back number 5, baby. QB5.
I know he freaking runs the ball all right, which is pretty good. But Devontae Smith, I think there was wide receivers on the waiver wire that are as valuable as him. And Dalton Schultz, though he's an okay tight end, I think there's plenty of other guys that are somewhat decent. So I value those running backs more than the tight end, especially with Sap squad and the bipocalypse this week. So now he has to start Jamal Williams instead of Cordero.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like what you said, I think Cordero. I mean, the Falcons are still going to stink, and I don't think Mike Davis is any good. So I think Cordero Patterson will still get a bunch of that cheap check down catch. They use around the goal line. So I agree. I liked the move for Ross's team. I thought it was an upgrade for Ross for sure.
I hated it because I'm playing Ross. So once Cordero goes off this week, but hey, if Sap's playing chess trying to make me lose, I mean, good for him, but he's got to make sure to win too. So the other trade was between you and Jared, and it is the fourth trade between the two of you this year. Like, you guys get more action than Lord only knows how many couples out there in this world, probably Sap and Sammy. So how do you feel about the intimacy of you and Jared's trade? You got David Montgomery and Devin Singletary. So Singletary is back on your squad, and Jared got Myles Gaskin and Damian Harris. So your just general thoughts on the deal?
Well, obviously I'm a little biased because it was my team, so I might not be the first one to ask. But I think, well, first of all, I better say that Jared asked me for a trade, not that specific trade, but he was asking me about trades, seeing what I would do. So it's not like I'm going knocking on his door every week, seeing what he's willing to do. But Jared had bipocalypse going on this week heavy. Yeah, he didn't even have anybody to play. So I gave him 2 starters for the hope that Montgomery returns soon and healthy and with the same role he had. So if Montgomery comes back and is the player that he was pre-injury and he has the same role, and let's say Justin Fields is good, then yes, I like it. But there is a dice roll with that. I don't know what he'll come back like. I scoured the internet trying to see what the doctors were saying about Monty. They were saying anywhere from week 8 to week 11. Obviously that makes a big difference. So who knows what we'll get, but that was the trade I was willing to roll the dice on. So
yeah, I thought it was an interesting deal. I thought the Singletary and Myles Gaskin I thought were kind of whatever to me because I'm not overly high on either of those guys. They're both, even though Gaskin's technically the starter, he's eclipsed the last 3 weeks. He's eclipsed 2.5 points one time. And that was a weird game against Tampa Bay where he caught all the passes. So it's stuff that I don't necessarily believe in him long-term, and Singletary, I feel the same. So I really thought of it more as a Montgomery for Damian Harris. And that's potentially an interesting deal, but I know Jared had the bipocalypse this week, but with his team being 1-5, I wouldn't necessarily worry so much as trying to win this week. I think Jared's more destined to be the Sacco, unfortunately, maybe as the loser's mentality, but I just think
I was gonna say you can't so you think Jared should just basically start planning for the playoffs already, or the Sacco playoffs already?
I think he should start worrying because he's our 2-time Sacco. I mean, he's going to have to change his name if he gets it again. And then I don't know if he can come up with another pun as good as 2-time Sacco. So if I'm a Jared's team, my team was started off 1-5. I'm really looking at the matchups in week 16 and 17 and trying to find a way to escape to a win. And I like the idea of having Montgomery and the backup Damian Williams, who I know still has COVID right now, so it makes it tough, but I would rather hold on to that as opposed to Damian Harris, who I just see having limited upside in that Patriots offense whenever they play good teams.
Kirby telling people to mail it in after week 6. Boy, oh boy. I don't know if I could ever co-sign that.
I'm telling him to focus on not getting that nutsack. If you're 1-5, I think you're probably doing the same exact thing, but that's my 2 cents. We'll see what the hell happens. Damian Harris could keep going off.
In theory, the best way to not get the Sacco would be to not get in the playoffs, would be to win now, right?
So you're saying that he needs to win 7 of his last 9 games with Jared's team?
No, 6.
Or 6 of his last 8 or whatever.
Well, I'm saying the best way to not get the Sacco is to not be in the playoffs. So
the best way to not get the Sacco is not start 1-5. That's the best way to do it. Start 5-1, and then you can talk shit like I am right now. But hey, that's my 2 cents. We'll see what in the world happens. I mean, obviously, we've thought there were unfair trades before, like Kelsey and Waller last year, and you never know what the hell happens. And that's what's beautiful. That's why we'll never allow a veto in our league. 2 people want to make a deal, we let it wheel and deal, and we see where the chips fly. So that's what makes it fun. But with that in mind, do we have anything else you kind of want to touch base on, or do we just jump right into the power rankings?
I don't know if this is bad fantasy strategy or not, but can I talk about an almost trade that happened last week and
absolutely.
see what you think about it? So this is also funny because I never tell you about any of the things I was doing. So on the pod last week, the goal was to try to get Josh Allen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was fucking badgering Built, like just blowing his fucking phone up. And it was going to be Josh Allen for Jalen Hurts and Chuba Hubbard, right?
Oh, yeah. You were playing that whole card of doing the handcuff or CMC.
So I was telling him, I was like, Built, this is as cheap as you're ever going to get Chuba Hubbard from me. Trust me when I say that. It's a step down in quarterback and no disagreements. But I said, what happens if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt again? His re-injury risk is high. You are going to wish you took this trade. And boy, oh boy, does it feel good sitting on this pod, flipping Built off middle finger 2 double birds that he didn't take that trade. And I get to watch for 3 weeks with Chuba Hubbard. So thank you, Built. I appreciate the fuck out of it. I don't think it would have mattered I would have still lost, I think, last week with Josh Allen. I don't think he scored 9 more than Hurts. So thank you, Builtino, and enjoy that hole in your roster. And I think I get to play Built not this week, but the next week without. I mean, Chuba Hubbard is starting in that game regardless of what happens, no matter what.
I thought I didn't even see the Chuba angle. I thought you were going to offer one of your many wide receivers, but I could see you trying to go that way. But to Built's defense, I mean, he's lasted 1 week without the back Chuba, and he's 1-0. So despite not having him, he got 1 win. So if he can split one of the next 2 weeks and end up 2-1 without McCaffrey and he's actually back, it ends up working out well. And then he didn't downgrade at quarterback. Yeah,
but I mean, what's the likelihood? Everything that I read, the likelihood of him coming back like right after the IR stint is not very good. So
yeah, I got no idea on that front.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Dr. Ross question. So all I'm saying is, like, it feels good to Built is public enemy number 1 right now. So it feels good to flip him to double bird. So,
well, it's good. Despite me burying you last weekend, Built's still number 1. So, hey, we can handle that however we can. But with that in mind, and after you've been able to talk all the shit that you want to Beltino, I think we got to jump into the power rankings, right?
Yep. And trust me, that's not all the shit. I still got more.
Oh, shit. That's what I like to frickin' hear. All right. Well, I think I got it up on my screen right now. Let me know if you got it.
Yep.
Actually, I'm going to change one thing really quick because I don't like what monitor is showing on. So I'm actually going to try and put that over here and share screen. Let's change it to that one. Booyah. Okay. Think it's working now?
Yep.
All right. Booyah. Okay. So last week's recap, we had me at the number 1 spot, Built, Sap at the number 3 spot. And we had Ross, you, Pooty, Schultes, Luddy, Axe, and Jared. So are we starting at the number 10 spot like you usually like to do, or you got to put Sap in a special spot?
No, we're going to start at the bottom. Trust me, I thought about this all week. I told you what I was going to do here, and I wanted to do it, but I respect the sanctity of the power rankings too much to disregard it. So I am going to leave Mr. Tua times Sacco at the bottom. Nice win, good win. I know last week we talked about switching up the order 10-9. So unfortunately for Jared, the 1 week he gets a W, so does Axman. They'll get a chance to battle each other, but for now I've still got Jared 10, Axe 9. Both had nice wins. Axe obviously dropped a few points, but the Axe has some major injury concerns that I think will, and so does Jared, honestly, but that I think we'll get a chance to talk about those two a little bit later. So I left those two 10-9. I don't know, any concerns there? I know they did win. Would you have moved any of them up there?
No, I think with like we did say last week, if Jared won, he'd be a strong consideration for 9, but then Axe also won with the most points last week. So, I mean, there's really only so much you can do. And like we said, like we're looking at the end of the year, what those potential rankings are going to be. And he does have Chubb, Saquon, and Henderson as 3 potential stable running backs. So I like the idea of you got to keep Axe ahead of Jared, at least for now.
Yep. So then 8. This might be a shout out to the Sat Vegas Painted Raiders, but I got them at 8. We're gonna put them on notice here. We got to get their shit right. We've had 2 back-to-back losses. We got Sap and Built coming up this week, so definitely need to get them going. But for right now, I'm going to keep myself above Axe and Jared, even though Axe beat me. So maybe I should probably reconsider that. And then at number 7, I've got the team that I just can't quite figure out. I've got Schultz still kind of part of that logjam, but on the outside looking in. So that's where I got top or bottom 4. What say ye?
That is very interesting. I think there's a few other teams. Like right now, my initial reaction is I think you're giving a little bit too much respect to Ross's team. We've seen him kind of do a fall the last few weeks. And last week, losing to Jared, I think he deserves a little bit more. Obviously, from 4, he still potentially can go down. But I think I would still have your team at number 6. And Schultz I'm kind of with you. It's hard to peg him as a team. And we also need to start considering Pooty is at 2 and 4. Maybe he deserves to be down there. So I think I'd have Ross and Pooty, I think, at the 7 and 8 spot. And that's a close one.
Well, you just named number 6 and number 5, because I've got Ross, who's back-to-back 90-pointers, no bueno, and coming off a loss to Jared. So that's going to drop him from 4 last week down to 6. You can't lose to Jared and go anywhere but arrow down. There's just nothing else. There's no other way to do it. Number 5, I've got Pooty. Like you said, we've talked about how much we like his roster. He's 2 and 5 right now.
2 and 4.
2 and 4. Von Miller's out for the rest of the game. Fucking A.
Yes.
He's still scoring points, but still losing. So I'm not ready to panic yet, but if he goes 2 and 5 and he has absolute desperation mode this week, he's got his 2 Denver running backs playing right now. And as this is, we're doing this right at halftime, and it did not look good early. So Pooty's in desperation mode. If he goes 2 and 5, boy, I'm going to have a hard time keeping him above that black line right there. Number 4, I said last week, if this guy keeps winning, it's going to be straight arrow up. I don't know what else to do. Kyler Ludwig just keeps winning. So I've got him at the 4 slot. I mean, what do you say? Guys 4 and 2, top of the division. I mean, what else can you say?
I think one of the interesting ones, I think I would put him up 1 spot higher, because just looking and I guess doing the overall outlook, I kind of touched base on Ross. Pooty's always an interesting team because his team is 2 and 4. He's got the 3rd most points scored in the league. So there's a potential variance right there where if he just gets the squad right, he's going to be looking better. So that's ranking somewhat makes sense. But I think between Kyler and Shane, I think I would like Kyler's squad over Sap's, especially in light of the most recent news, just because I wasn't a big fan of Sap's trade. I think that for sure swings the pendulum over to Luddy. So I don't know if you want to potentially pivot mid power rankings to Team Luddy after this trade, but that's my pitch for Team Luddy over Sap.
No, I'm going to stick with what I got. We've got Luddy, who's playing Built in a big matchup this week. But I've got Luddy at 4, and I've got Sap at the 3 hole. So no change there. Right now, Sacco and Luddy were kind of splitting hairs. I keep looking at Luddy's team, and it's really been battling injuries. Let me pull them up here quick. Tyreek Hill, is he going to play? Russell Wilson, he's been out. Josh Jacobs, how's he been? Chris Carson on IR. Chase Edmonds is questionable. So it just seems like can't quite get over some of those nagging injuries. I don't know what's going on with Tyreek Hill. Just a lot of unknowns right now, which I don't believe Sap has going on right now. So that's why I've got him sort of shooken out the way I do.
Nope, that 100% makes sense. So your top 2 squads, I'm guessing there's not going to be much change. Do you want to just talk about it real quick?
I don't want to talk about it real quick. We've got number 2, Public Enemy number 1, Built, double birds again. And then I've got Kirby at number 1, which is stupid. Pisses me off.
I mean, you're saying you want to talk for a while. I mean, is that Is that really all that you got? I don't know why this. Oh, I don't even have the formula pulling up here to give myself the beautiful 5-1. There we go. But you don't see any problem with that? That's 3 weeks in a row that I'm up on top. You don't see anything wrong with that picture?
I think it's perfectly accurate for now.
I know it's a long freaking way, and I still know that your squad is pretty dang formidable, especially once Montgomery comes back. So, hey, that's for the Week 7 power rankings. I think as of right now, I'm kind of the no-brainer number one. Luckily, with a few big weeks, but Antonio Gibson's shin injury is a little bit cause for concern, but hopefully I'll have some wide receivers coming back, and between JT and Henry, those can be my top 2 running backs. So we'll see where the team all takes us, and you never know what's going to happen.
And what a nice guy. Where's my thank yous in the public in the group chat for the public service announcement that Antonio Gibson has been injured before you unloaded him on some poor soul? So a thank you, rest of the Yarsky, would be appreciated.
I know you 100% do that just to me to make sure that I don't try to do that, because you know I'm mortal enemy number one. But what's beautiful is 2 years ago, you actually did that same thing with Melvin Gordon coming back, and that made no one want to trade for Austin Eckler. He ended up a top 5 running back this year. And so right now, I don't need Antonio Gibson. I can let him sit out a few weeks if he needs to. And so long as he's ready for the playoff push, I don't care. So you can send those texts all you want. I'm not even trying to unload him.
I mean, thank goodness we have a doctor on the squad who can straighten that stuff out for us. Thank goodness.
Oh, God. There we go. There we go. But, hey, with that in mind, I mean, we'll just dive into really quickly what in the world that Fantasy Pros has and what they have in terms of their rankings. So let me see if I can get this compared to our Week 7. So rest of season right now. See, right now it says, and this is a little bit different because some teams don't have a kicker, but it's got me in the number 1 slot. It's got Arsacco down there at the number 2. And then they got kind of a logjam here right between these little middle area with Pootie's team, who we seem to like, but it's not taking into account their current record. And what are your initial thoughts here? Just kind of checking this out quick at a high level. We have 2 of the teams that you have in the Sacco rated at 2 and 3 for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if it's because obviously we're getting into the season, right? We're 6 weeks in, and what do we play? 14 weeks this year. So
yeah, that's right.
I mean, we're sort of kind of getting into it, you know. So obviously the prior records are a huge part of the power rankings, but there's some huge disparities, like Built down at 7, Ross at 8, Sap at 9. I mean, I know people keep kind of poo-pooing on Ross's team. He's had 2 tough weeks, but you know, I'm not ready to jump off that ship quite yet, I don't think. I still think he's a top 6 team in here.
I would agree. I think that trade that he did this week really did help his running back depth in terms of Elijah Mitchell. He's officially passed his bye week, and so is Cordero Patterson. So if one of those 2 is a consistent running back for the rest of the year, he's going to be looking pretty solid. So I do think Ross's team could be pretty interesting the rest of the year. And they still like Josh's team, but a lot of his team is just all about the injuries is going to be huge with him.
That was the other one I was going to point out. I mean, to see him at 5 was surprising I mean, obviously it doesn't take into account the records, but to see with Saquon and Chubb hurt and nobody really knows how long, I'm surprised to see him, you know, kind of cracking that top half, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. But that's just the main item. Obviously, these things are always subject to change and all that fun stuff. And we just kind of do this as a point of reference compared to what Blondie has. But with that in mind, I think we just got to touch base on the Week 7 matchups and we can wrap it up, man. So with that in mind, what was the big matchups that you kind of had in mind for this week?
I mean, you know, there's obviously more important games throughout the list, but for me, just pure entertainment, it's got to be Axe and Jared, right? I mean, do we have a potential Sacco preview? Like, is that kind of what we're going to get here? I don't know, but what I do know is that both teams have been pretty decimated. If you scroll down to Axe's squad, Dak, Barkley, Chubb, Lamb, all out this week, so that's huge. OBJ was questionable. It sounds like he ran back in. So I mean, talk about an injury / bye week, and then you look at Jared, he's got even more issues, and that could have been worse prior to the trade. He's got Damian Williams with COVID, doesn't sound like he's in. Kareem Hunt's out, Kittle's out, Manny Sanders, Chase Claypool, and Julio's a question mark. So, I mean, talk about a squad that's banged the fuck up. So, and I mean, he basically got two startable or playable options this week. So it could have been way worse for him too. So that for me, it's just pure entertainment value at this. Like, it's the two guys that have been at the bottom like the whole year, I think, just about. So it's going to be fun to watch them go head to head.
Yeah, I think he's got Jared, especially with the Bipocalypse. He's got a little bit of seller's remorse because I know that earlier he traded away Chuba Hubbard for Justin Fields. And so there's obviously some remorse there, and obviously worked out better for you. But that trade just never made sense to me because he had Tom Brady at the time, who was a top 3, top 5 quarterback. And we always talk about the advantages of a running quarterback, which there are some, but if you have a top 5 guy, you don't mess with it. So that's the one thing that I saw, but you can only do. But go ahead. You got one last thing to say.
Well, about the trade, what I didn't understand, and maybe things changed, obviously, but like, I don't think Jared was convinced Tom Brady was because I think at the time he was like the number one, right? So I don't think Jared was convinced that he was the number one. And it was like, okay, like, you can trade Tom Brady if Justin Fields is a viable option, get another piece to play, and then play Justin Fields. Now, this is before we knew kind of what Justin Fields was, and before we knew Christian McCaffrey got re-injured. So everything, hindsight, looks different. But at the time, yeah, I didn't know he was going to then go trade for Patrick Mahomes, and that's where it definitely didn't make sense. I mean, getting Patrick Mahomes is never a bad thing, but yeah, if he had intentions of trading Tom Brady for another quarterback, then it probably didn't make sense, if you know what I mean.
Yep, for sure. And the one matchup that I wanted to highlight, which actually has seen some activity because we missed pretty much the whole third quarter of this game, was Pooty and Schultes. So we actually got a touchdown from Melvin Gordon, which is absolutely huge. And so huge. This is just a good matchup. Schultes, the team we can't peg on how their team is going to do right now. He's got Kamara and Fournette back this week, but he's losing Thielen and Mike Williams. So he's putting Courtland Sutton into his flex spot, which isn't doing too bad through one half. And thank God he did, because I placed a hedge bet, which is going to guarantee me $15 now that he's got over 50 receiving yards, baby.
Now, can we, since this is technically a fantasy football podcast, we should maybe share a little nugget of information. So Schultes did make a mistake here.
Oh, we're going deep dive into this. This is like fantasy nerd shit, but go ahead.
Well, we're doing fantasy theory on top of just the YarskCap. But so Schultes did make a mistake here because he put a Thursday night player in his flex. Now, some people might say, like, why the fuck does that matter? Well, the problem is if he has, I don't know who he has on his bench, but if he has,
let's say Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't hurt this week.
Yeah, keep scrolling, Curb. See who's down there yet.
Herbert.
So, like, let's say he had,
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans get hurt. He gets COVID. Perfect example. Well, if you look at his bench, he doesn't have any receivers that could play this week, but he does have Khalil Herbert. So if Schultes would have put Courtland Sutton into his receiver slot and put Mike Evans into his flex spot, he could pivot later to a different position there. So that's some game theory 101 to take your Thursday night players out of your flex spot. So
yeah, it always feels weird because you always feel like, oh, you want to put your best receivers up there and your third receiver as a flex. I know a visual thing, that's what I like too, but especially with COVID and how ransacked that can be, there's zero downside if you're going to play this person in your flex on a Thursday night to put them in the wide receiver spot. And then it just maximizes your flexibility for the rest of your roster. And especially this week during Bipocalypse, it's just, you need to have every roster spot be so valuable because you never know if one of the two players is going to get COVID, be out this week, and then Schultes is scrambling for a wide receiver as opposed to trying to pivot to Khalil Herbert, which is already ready as his running back spot. He could just move into the flex. So if you have someone, the last person that you're playing between a running back and wide receiver, if you have a running back playing on Monday night and you want to start 3 running backs, move that Monday night running back down to the flex. It doesn't matter. They're still going to score the same amount of points no matter where you put them in your lineup.
Some game theory right there. I like that.
That's what we get for listening to knowing way too much fantasy football. But this is just the matchup I had highlighted because Pootie's team, who we both love at 2-4, and he needs to scrap his way to 7 wins is pretty much the benchmark that I've kind of said all year. And so he can lose this week and still go 5-2 down the stretch, but he needs to start pulling out some wins here or else he's going to run out of time. And so that Melvin Gordon touchdown that he's had since the half has been absolutely huge for Pootie's squad.
Yeah, things get a lot tougher if Pootie loses and goes 2-5. I mean, again, kind of like same with Jared. I wouldn't be ready to like fire sale and start planning for the playoffs quite yet, but it's going to be an uphill mountain to climb if Pootie goes 2-5, regardless of how many points he's been scoring. Because, like you said, you got to get 7 wins, and if you do, you start getting into some of those tiebreakers, and he's going to be behind the 8 ball in a lot of those. So yeah, Pootie's in dire straits here, so he needs the dubs. I mean, kind of everybody in that middle tier needs the dubs. Let's be honest. So.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how it pays out. Those are the 2 big matchups that we kind of highlighted. I mean, one big matchup, the other one is just the toilet bowl version 1. So we'll see what
big for the league. Big for the league.
It's big for the league to see who ends up near the bottom. But with that in mind, I know we kind of didn't have a guest here, so we have a little bit shorter podcast. Any lasting words you want to have for the people, or any things that you want to come, Ghost of Zach Earlbeck?
No, it was perfect because doing it first of all, it was your fault it got pushed back, which I liked. It wasn't my fault. Number 2, it had to be shorter because football's going on. So let's keep this thing going. That's less time that I had to dwell on last week, which is greatly appreciated. Trust me.
Hey, you know what? We do what we can. The Fighting Derrick Henrys, King Henry is doing all he can. I mean, Ross, if you're listening to this, which I know you are because you asked about it, kudos on your last second pivot to your new running back. I'm a little scared that Derrick Henry's going against his manager of the last 2 years, so he might be nice to him for a week, but we'll just have to see. But with that in mind, good luck, everyone. Have a hell of a week of fantasy football and keep rolling, baby.
Peace.